Hello, I'm Malta, and I'm doing a very attractive pen and ink drawing by Richard England, who is a Maltese architect of some renown internationally and on the island. And his architecture straddles religious buildings, which I would score highly, and it straddles some municipal architecture, which I would class neutrally, and it straddles some hotel architecture, which I would describe as poor. Now, the thing about the hotels in Malta is they were a commercial necessity, and I've read some of the books by England, and the Maltese arch is one of the things he talks about, and these hotels use the Maltese arch, which I like, and that's what you would call vernacular architecture, and it's good if you used it. But you have these hotels which are fundamentally multi-storey hotels with set-piece rooms of the same size, same shape, same aspect, same arch, same balcony. So I don't like them, those hotels, and some of them have been changed and updated, and they exist. Most of them still exist, or in fact all of them perhaps exist. So you have this spectrum of architectural endeavours: private customers, municipal customers, corporate customers, and it's of huge interest. And he was born in 1937. He's same age as my father, and he saw Malta turn from quite a sleepy little place outside the docks into a buzzing, humming metropolis. And the legacy of some of the architecture in Malta is toxic, and I really have very mixed feelings about collectively what's been done to the island by the architect business in the architect industry. So I have bought this picture. Now, I have been wanting to buy this picture for a long time. I think it is the best picture England's done, and that sounds rather grandiose. I'll try and explain to you why. He's got these pen and inks, and there are a number of them. Some don't necessarily allude to Malta. Some allude to imaginary places, which could be Greece, it could be Northern Europe, Central Europe, it could be Malta in a different guise. But I think this one does allude to Malta, and I'm going to just point out, I'll use my gilding tool to show you. This is a vedette. This is the Maltese guard tower. You do get them in other places. You get them around France. Vauban had them. You get them in Sicily, places like that. You get them in the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean, they have the same thing. And but I think this is Maltese, and I would suggest this is a Maltese scene. It was suggested to me it was the Three Cities, and I think it is the Three Cities. It could be the latter, because it has a very similar. We're looking today at the skyline, has a very similar architecture. That's the one I don't recognise. This is a sort of Mussolini style 1930s tower. You get them, it looks like a BBC tower in London. So I think that one's made up. But in Malta you do have the domes, you do have the cupola, plural, and you do have the sort of 1950s type modern churches. So you have this higgledy-piggledy, random, handmade Malta, vernacular, flat top roof of Malta, built behind the walls. And you have what defines this part, apart from the steps and the small windows, sets of three, these windows. You have the shade carefully placed on this side. So he's got the shade right. He's got the zigzag from the top, bastions, zigzag, zigzag, and he's got the shade to show the Vauban-esque shape of the fortifications. He's got, I don't recognise that building. He's got steps. These walls in Malta, Three Cities, have little access points for the defenders. They're called sally ports in England. I don't know what they're called in the Med. And you have, as I say, steps So I like it hugely. This is totemic and emblematic. It's not a logo, it's not an emblem, but it's emblematic. And it stinks of pure Malta. It's tangible. If you go to St Malo, inside the walls, the ground level is the same as the quayside. So all the buildings in St Malo are behind the wall. You stand in the street in St Malo and look out to sea. You see the back of the wall. If you're in Malta or Birgu or Angelo, and you stand and look out to sea, you can see out to sea because the ground level is at the top of the wall, which works very well, and it's aesthetically superior to St Malo, which is actually quite a drab, depressing place, claustrophobic place. So I have thought a lot about Malta and the walls, and I often compare it to other fortified towns, and Malta has the edge, nearly always, far superior aesthetically. He hasn't used any colour in this, it's monochrome, it's the colour of the paper and it's the colour of the ink, pen and ink. And it's not rushed, but it's been spontaneously done. I think that there are allusions to caper trees growing out of the side of the fortifications. There could be lanterns, there could be windows. I think that mass needed breaking up, and I think he has put in some detail. The square triple sets of windows reminds me of the University of Malta, and it reminds me of the St George's swimming pool setup, which is much vaunted and admired. And when it was built, I remember it being built, and the colours were, for this island, groundbreaking. But the colours, if you went to Miami, were old colours, and they had been depicted by Hockney 4 and were worn out by the time that development was built. And if you go to the development now, it's an introverted development. If you're on the inside, you're fine. But if you look at it from the outside, it's really disappointing. And it is, in my view, it insults the surrounding area. Look, it looks like a bastion. You have a huge development of towers with this pool in the middle, and the exterior is blank. Really poor, in my view. Sorry to be so offensive about a local architect. So we have this here. I don't think it's a tree. I don't think it's a chimney. I think it is a sun. And I think it is linked to the ground. Now I've noticed Cremona, I have got art by Cremona. I noticed Cremona likes to paint a sun with a ray of sunshine touching the ground. And some of the suns he does have a painted column. It's not a column as a fixed column, it's a ray of sun, but it's not a splash of light, it is an attachment to the ground. I think that I might be mistaken. I think this is a nod to Cremona, to Cremonaism. I think that is a sun with a link to the ground. And I think it's appealing. You have to have the sun in Malta. It fills the composition, it balances it. He does do good signatures. That signature is the value, really. He's a famous man, good signature. This one is not dated. I don't know the date. If I had to put money on it, I'd say 2015. The quality of this work on this particular one is good. I have seen other ones similar with not such good Maltese scene, which have poor definition, and the paint blocks have less intensity. So if you're going to buy, I'm selling to people who want to buy antique and modern pictures. I sell things to people who want to buy stuff so they can invest, sell it later, more money. That's what it is. While they own it, they want to enjoy the ownership. And they don't want anonymous pieces, they want status pieces. And if they have friends around, they say, well, look at my original. That's part of the industry. You could say it's like owning a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, it's a similar thing. And some of these families give them to the children when they die, and they get passed down the line. It's difficult in England to do that now because the tax man won't let you do that anymore. They make you value your pictures, and they want a proportion of the value. You can basically assume the government wants 25% of the value of all your antiques in England, fundamentally. In Malta there isn't that problem yet, and you can hand this to your children in Malta. So take that home, darling, hang on the wall, you're okay, but you can't do that in a lot of places anymore. So they're a store of wealth, there are items of interest, there are items of beauty. There are elements of the art market which are not increasing highly. I would just suggest at the moment the portraits of the religious pictures, the unsigned ordinary Victorian ones, are not going up very well. I would suggest the 20th century Maltese art is going up very, very high, but it's not going up as high as the English 20th century art. And if you think the market here is getting a bit hot, it's not even lukewarm compared with the market in England. Obviously you have these names like Banksy and Hirst, and there are a lot of secondary ones, and the price of even the secondary ones you've never heard of, or never want to even hear of, far outstrips the best 20th century artists in Malta. So relatively, it's not overpriced. So we have this England pen and ink. I think it's a good size, it's well done, it's of Malta. It's not of an abstract place which doesn't exist. It does have the visual effect of depicting Malta, though it is an imaginary place in terms of its aspect. It's a sort of composite, abstract-ish sort of concoction. But I think it's very, very good. It's a very hard thing to explain, but I think it's a wonderful thing. I like it hugely. And I think in 20 or 30 years, whoever buys it will be pretty pleased. My profit margin is modest. If you consider the London sale room will take a selling commission of 15 to 20%, and a buyer's commission of 25 to 30%. In England, if you put something through a sale room, the auction house takes 50% of the entire proceeds. So you have to understand what's going on. In Malta, the auctions don't, to their credit. It's a whole different story in Malta. The auctions are fantastic, and the value of Maltese sale room is very low. So we have it for sale. I think I've given my opinions on it, and my opinions on some other things as well. Thanks for having a look.